for Flutter Festival for DSC IIT Goa chapter. And uh, in this Flutter Festival, I would be taking 5 sessions in which we will learn how to build apps using Flutter. And after each session, I would give some sort of assignment which would help you learn more. And along with that, I'll also provide some resources um, which you can explore with your free time. So let's go to the next slide. So this is a timeline. Currently, we do not have the dates fixed for all the events. I would the next event would be probably this weekend or next week, and rest are still not decided. So there will be five sessions. So introduction to Flutter and Dart is today, and then there will be building an app with Flutter, and there will be an app project, and intro to Firebase, and Flutter app with Firebase. So these are the sessions, and currently only the first one has been completed. Others are yet to be made, and we have to complete all five of these by 30th March. So let's get started. So many people don't know what is Flutter. So this is a really popular question that I got. So Flutter is an app development framework that uses the language Dart developed by Google engineers to support cross-platform development. Flutter has a clean look due to the material design library added in it by default, and its simple widgets. A widget is a basic UI or structural component like a text box or a button, etc. So it's basically a framework used to build apps for iOS, Android, web, and it recently also started supporting Windows, so desktop as well. So why Flutter? The major reason why Flutter appeals to developers is the fact that from a single code base, one can create apps for multiple platforms like Android, iOS, web, desktop too. So I'll play this video. It will.
Mobile users expect their apps to have beautiful designs, smooth animation.
So this will explain why Flutter. It will introduce you to Flutter, and oh, yeah, I'll just get
and great performance. To deliver on this, developers need to create new features faster than ever without compromising on quality or performance. That's why we built Flutter. Flutter is Google's mobile that provides a fast and expressive way for developers to build native apps on both iOS and Android. This is because apps and interfaces made with Flutter are built from a single codebase, compiled directly to native ARM code, use the GPU, and can access platforms and services. 3 ways that Flutter will help you on day 1. Flutter is engineered for high developer velocity. Stateful hot reload allows you to change your code and see it come to life in less than a second without losing the state of the app. Flutter also ships with a rich set of customizable widgets, all built from our modern reactive framework. Plus, Flutter integrates with popular development tools, which means you can get started with the editor or IE you already know and love. Flutter moves the widgets, render, animation, and gestures into the framework to give you complete control over every pixel on the screen. This means you have flexibility to build custom designs. Flutter apps follow platform conventions and interface details, scrolling, navigation, icons, fonts, and more. This is why apps built with Flutter are featured on both the App Store and Google Play Store. Flutter is great for developers both new and experienced in mobile. If you're new to mobile, Flutter gives you a fast, fun, and modern way to deliver native apps. If you're an experienced mobile developer, you can add Flutter to your existing workflows and tools to build new expressive UIs. Flutter is free and open source and used by around the world, including enterprise, agencies, and startups. Visit flutter.io to get started today. We can't wait to see what you build.
So that should have given a better overview of what Flutter actually is. So let's go into the next question. So is it worth learning a new programming language called Dart? So as I told you, Flutter uses a programming language developed by Google called Dart. So many people have only started learning programming, and they are doing only one. They have knowledge about one language only or two. Uh, so they are. Is it worth learning another language just to develop apps? So let's see. I'll give an intro of Dart. Dart programming language is really simple to learn, and it has a lot of common uh, things with Java, JavaScript, or Python. These languages have a lot of common features, so you can relate to one another. So Google also provides the best documentation, which contains tutorials, articles, and more. So if you have any doubt regarding syntax or any function, the Google documentation on the official Flutter website is really well made. So if you can look that up anytime, and there are also a lot of other resources on the internet like tutorials. Uh, I'll play a video which will explain you why Flutter uses Dart in a much better way. So, okay, one second, I mute myself first.
In today's world, you need to build for many platforms to reach all your users while maintaining quality to keep them happy. Flutter enables you to ship an application for Android, iOS, and the web from a single codebase. To do this, Flutter needs a programming language that works on all these platforms and gives you a fast development experience. That's why Flutter chose Dart. Let's take a look at how Dart enables you to develop a Flutter app quickly and deploy it to multiple platforms. If you're developing for mobile, you might be used to slow compile and debug cycles. Dart changes this by enabling one of Flutter's most loved features, Hot Reload, which injects updated Dart source code into your running app and rebuilds your UI in less than a second so you can see your changes instantly. Also, today's users expect high-quality experiences. Traditionally, you might have used separate teams to build performant apps for each platform. Dart enables you to build high-fidelity Flutter apps for all platforms with one team. Dart's production quality compilers compile to ARM and x64 machine code for mobile or optimized JavaScript for the web, enabling quick app startup times and smooth animations. Finally, Dart is easy to learn. You'll pick up Dart quickly if you're familiar with languages such as Java, Swift, and JavaScript. Together, Dart and Flutter help you create amazing experiences across Android, iOS, and the web. Try Dart in your browser today at dart.dev.
So that was about Dart. So as he mentioned, there is something called Hot Reload, which basically updates all your app. If you have made any changes in the code, it will update it extremely fast, and you can view the new app really um, much faster. So, so the plan for today is, so right now I just gave you a basic intro to Flutter and Dart, and through those two videos, and explaining basically what they are. Now we're going to come to learning the Dart syntax. Today I will go over the syntax, and you will. I would suggest you guys code along with me. I will provide you with this link. So this is the website we will use to write and run our code called dartpad.dev. And after which we will look how to set up Android Studio for Flutter. I will provide you resources now after this session. There will be an assignment for this for the first week, and I will also provide some additional learning resources if you want to understand it, understand Flutter more. I will provide you additional tutorials and articles or some sort of it after this session. So someone wants to join. Okay, going to the next slide. So guys, now I would recommend you to open Dartpad on a separate tab if possible, because we would go into the code right now. So right now, keep it open like side by side. And so the first example is just okay. I'll ask. So guys, have you are you ready? Like just say yes in the chat box so that I'll go over the code, explain it. Yes. Okay. So okay, guys. Nice. So first thing there is so in your in on the Dartpad website, the left box is where you write your code, and when you run it, it would give you the output on the console. So here I would so the first example is this printing hello world, and it's simple. You just write a main function of return type void, and it will print hello world. And you can try this right now. I have to switch my slide. So yeah, now you can see my Dartpad tab. So I'll write void main print and hello world. It's like Python, but here we have a semicolon and there are brackets for for the instead of indentation we use brackets. So when I run this, it will take some time. So you can see it prints hello world. So now I switch my slide. Um, okay. The next example is printing variables and expressions. So you have in Dart there are all those variables you have in Python, all those data types like integers, strings, etc. And if you use the var before the variable name, you have to say you have to write var, which means variable, or in short, you can say, and you can assign it an integer, a decimal value, a floating point value, or a string, or any so like even boolean like I print. You can assign all data types, and it will not give any errors. So now, if you print those variables, you will see um, that yeah, it is exactly those which we assigned it. And if you want to print print the variable in a string, you write it like this. So my name is dollar sign the variable name. You continue the string. So here you can see in the output it says my name is Anish and I am 19 years old. So in Python we usually use a comma and write our variable after it and then continue with another comma and the string. Here you use dollar before the variable. So printing expressions and loops. So there are loops in Dart and it works just like C++. So there is a for loop. There is also integer. This is also a data type apart from var. So integer, string, float. These separate data types are also available, and you can use them instead of var if you want. And they will only store the respective type of values. Like integer will only store integer. If you give it a float, it will return an error, unlike var. So here I is equal to 0, I less than 5, I plus plus. If you do it, it will print the count um, at each iteration as shown over here. So I'll switch my tab. Um, Hopefully I'm on my dart pad right now. So like I'll write for int I equals 0, I less than 5, I plus plus, and I'll just take this print count $sign I. Okay, so I plus 1. So if you want to print out an expression, you can put a curly braces around this expression. So, and yeah, just run it. So let's see if it's, yeah, it matches the example. And now we'll go on to the next slide.
Bhaiya, my in my it is telling the name main is already defined.
Okay, so the name main, I think you have used main again. एक बार check करो. uh, if you have written void main again, एक और function वापस, and जो पहला code था, please erase that, and ये separate example separately लिख दो. So you can only mention main once in a program. एक बार try करो and
Yes, it
let
was
me.
here. Hmm.
Okay, okay, nice. So we'll go on to the next slide. Yes. So using static data types, I mentioned that integers, float, and string, they are also present in Dart apart from var, and they will only store their type of value. So in this case, 19 is an integer, age will store that, and it's decimal, and so on. And if you print them, it will display as expected the values in the console, printing variables and expressions. So in this, what is there? So now there is another type of variable called dynamic. So integer, float, and string are static data types, but there is another dynamic data type which acts similar to var. That means you can store any type of value in it. Like you can store int and then change it to a string, and yeah, and it won't return any error, and you can print them and see in this example if first 10 was 10, then I change it to Anish, and then I gave it this float value, and it didn't return me an error. So I'll just write this example right now. Okay, so I switched my tab. Hopefully I now the view is shifted here. Now in here I'll define a dynamic data type n, and we will print n respectively. Method getter setter. Okay, so I have another extra. So then change it to a string. Suppose Anish, and don't forget to add semicolon. Because of Python, we sometimes miss the semicolon. 5, 6, print, and semicolon. So there is no indentation issues in this language because unlike Python, it does not recognize any indents. As long as it is inside the braces, curly braces, it would consider at a part of that particular function, in this case main function. So this is the output we were getting, and it's exactly the same. So I will be switching to the next slide. So anyone who is, yeah, you can try it. Meanwhile, I'll explain this. So now I'll explain functions. Like there are ways to define a function, two different ways. So you can see there is this void main, and I'm calling two functions. One is addition, one is sum. So both do the same thing, no difference. So, but they are defined in different ways. So int addition takes two integers as arguments, and it will return the addition. And there is also int sum, which takes two integers and integer arguments, and this equal to greater than sign means it will return a plus b. So if you want to write a a function which has only one statement in it, one line of code, you can directly write it in this manner. So some it's like lambda function in Python, and it basically like saves time, and there are some other uses as well. So let's try this. Let's try this example. So okay, so we have two integers a 10 and b 20. So yeah, and we have two functions, and I'll write sum first. And sum, wait, sum is returning like this. So let's call sum in our main. We print it. Print sum a comma b. Hopefully this is going to work. And we got 30. So yeah, this definitely works. And if we want to do it traditionally, how it is in uh, the other languages, like how we normally do, other languages may also have this kind of single line function declaration or something, and we have to return this return. And if you see the output, it should be same. Yeah, the run got refreshed, the console was refreshed, it is the same. So it's just two different ways to write a function. I'll switch my tab quickly. This other example tells us about lists. So there is a list data type in um, in Dart. You have to write list before it with capital L. So it works just like our Python list. You can store integer, string, and other data types. And when you print it, it will print the list just like Python. So there is another additional feature in which you can restrict the data types of the list. So if I put this integer in between and these less than and greater than sign, so this will become an integer only list. So if you try to use the add function, there is this add function which will put add a value at the end of the list. So if you add a string value at the end of an integer list, it will always obviously return you an error. But if you do it in a normal list like that above, it won't return you an error. And here you can see I've added a to the normal list, and I've added 4 because 4 was an integer. It did not have any issue. So let's see what the error we get. Um, so share this tab. Uh, so I might be going. If you want to try these examples, um, and you missed, suppose I switched a tab and you were writing and you missed something. So I'm sorry, but I would definitely share this presentation with you. You can try it later. Right now, we would quickly go over the more specific ones. So this is an integer list. So I have two elements currently, and yeah, there is no error. If I print quickly, let's see what it will print. So it is printing correctly. So now I'll use the add function to add a string, and I'll see if I get an error because this was an integer list. So yeah, I got an error. Okay, here it is. Argument type defined, string assigned, or can't be assigned to parameter type int. So yeah, you can't push a string in this. So let's try 3 this time and hopefully it is correct. So yeah, if you push an integer, it won't give you an error. So now hopefully that was
I
clear.
have a doubt.
Yes.
I have a doubt. There, when we use the print function to print the list K, then we didn't use apostrophe. But when we printed L and K both, we used apostrophe and dollar symbol. Without that, error is coming. Why is it like?
Okay. So why I used a dollar symbol was because I wanted to print L and K side by side on the same line. So I put it in a inside double quotes, and now whenever I um, put anything inside double quote, it will be a string. So now I don't want to just print any string. I want to print the value stored in lnk. So to access those values, you put dollar sign before lnk. The only difference was that I'm not printing lnk as it is. I'm printing it inside double quotes. How can we add a string in a list? Yeah, you can just do add, and inside add, the parameter that you will pass, it would be inside double quotes or a string variable. So just as in this example, you l dot add, I'm adding a string a. You This is not a character. Assume it is a string only. You can have multiple characters. Okay, I'll show you. I'll show you. So hopefully my dart pad is. So now let me remove this integer, and let's add Anish. So now if you see, I have added a string to the list because this is not a integer specific list anymore. So this is how you can add them. And you ask me why dollar sign. So if I put double quotes, it will print k, right? So I want the value of variable k, not k. So I put a dollar sign before it inside double quotes. That was the difference. Okay. So now
Okay, I have a doubt.
yes,
Can we do slicing with the list? Is it possible in Dart?
slicing with the list. Yes,
Like
you can do slicing. I have not covered it in this one, but I would. I have forgotten how to do it. I would. I would. After the session, I'll go search how to do slicing. But you can definitely access individual elements using. Okay, then. I'll switch tabs and the next slide. Okay, so there is some different loops and also a ternary statement. So there are conditional statements in Dart, just like other languages, like if else if else. So it works just like say Java or C++, in which it's exactly the same. So you put if and the condition this round brackets, after which you put the lines you want to execute in that if inside the curly braces, and followed by an else if. This else if does not have to be directly after this ending curly brace. There is you can put it on the next line as well. There is no issue about indentation or anything in Dart. But there is also this ternary statement. So I think the color is bit off, but that is greater than equal to, not greater than minus. So it is the same thing as above. So if year is greater than equal to 2001, print the 21st century. So this question mark means if this is true, then print the statement right after the question mark. And if it is false, there is this colon over here. So if the first statement is false, print the statement after the colon. So in this case, print 20th century. So let's try this, okay? Let's try this and see, like, is it actually the case? So let's just say, we'll say we don't need to have here. Let's just say true and print say yes, and after which we'll do else and print. Um, no. Okay, so this is the standard if else conditional statement. So if it's true, it will print yes. If I given false, so I've changed it to false, it should give, yeah, it works as expected, no problem. Now let's just write a ternary example. So true is basically any logical expression, anything like years greater than equal to. And this, the first statement would be print yes, else print RINT. No, hopefully it is visible. So let's try running this. So below one was true. Yeah, it works as expected. So me to try and say equal to one would give me yes. This run button is back and it's same. So this is how ternary works. In one statement, you can define your if else block. Um, of course, there is else if as well. Else if else if is the first statement is false and the second one is true. Then it will skip. It will go to else if. So now I've set it true. It should be no only, no difference. So that is how you write conditional statements. And I'll switch my tab quickly. So there are other loops. So in Python we write if I in range, or if I in some uh, iterable object like a list or a string, uh, like like that. Only in Dart we can do for final object in flyby object. So object is basically your I in this case. Flyby objects will be some kind of a iterable object like a list or something. And if you print it, should print the print I suppose. So and the normal for loop we looked at earlier, it is also valid. This is how we write a for loop in C++ or Java. And there is also a while loop if it, it is exactly the same as those C++ and Java. So let me try the object loop once on Dartpad just to check. Hopefully I switched my tab. Okay, yes I have. So quickly, I have not tested this example before. So final, suppose I in a list, probably like 2 comma 3 suppose. Hopefully this will work. We print I. So it's just like Python. I don't think this is that visible. Now it should be fine. So this I've written only difference is I've written final and I put this statement in round brackets. Final I in this list, it will iterate over the list and will print all values of I. Hopefully this is clear. Other loops are basically simple. I won't go over them. You can just, as in a previous example, I showed this loop, and while loop is really obvious after that. So yeah, next example is about classes. So we have classes in Flutter as well. So in this case, I have made a user class. This right after there is a string username and int age variable, the which is initialized to null value. Suppose this is an empty string and this is 0. So in Dart there is recently there is, I mean, some time ago they have made null safety compulsory. So you can't have a variable with null values. You have to initialize it, or there is some type of syntax which you have to use if you want to keep it. You want it to have a null value. So what do I mean by null value? If I just leave string username as it is without writing equal to this empty string, double just single quotes right after one another, then it will return me an error saying uh, you can't have null values. Okay, so after that there is this user. This is a constructor. Constructor basically a function with the same name as the class, and um, in this case it is taking this sum a comma b. So sum a comma b is I think I made some kind of a mistake. I'm not sure, but let me check. I think it should be only a comma b. While making the slide, must have like copy pasted the last slide, some a comma b. So that is why you can see it here. But ignore that for now. Uh, it just ignore the sum. Let it just be a comma b, or username comma age in this case. Let it just be username comma age. I will write this on Dartpad to show you what should be the correct one. So this dot username, this will refer to the class object after just before the user constructor. So this one, the username, which is empty string and age is 0. So this dot username will be assigned to the parameter we in just got in the function. So and there's also login function, which is a part of this class, which prints that the user logged in. In the main loop, we are calling the constructor saying you, and we are storing the user object in user data type called user1. So you can see user, the first parameter is Anish and 19, and it's printing user1 dot username. So this is the object, and the username is a basically an instance of that object. So this username, and it initialized it with the constructor which we called, and it should print me Anish. Similarly, um, I think this should be user2. I made a mistake while making this slide. Actually, I'll just show you guys the code on that pad so that there is no confusion. So user class string username empty string and int age 0 user. So first is username comma age, and this dot username is equal to username this dot age equal to age. So now void login print user logged in. Okay, so let's remove this loop. User user one user niche 19 and user one dot username. Copy this. Instead of one, I write user two user two, and this time I change the name Guru 21. User one dot login. I'm calling function inside the class with two different objects login. So let's run this. Yeah, this is the correct code. It is giving me the um, same output as the one I showed in the slide. I have made some mistakes in this. This is the correct version. I'll share this one with you guys.
But I have a doubt.
Yes, please
What
go
is
ahead.
that? This dot? Why you have written this?
So look, as you can see, there are two different username variables, right? One is the string username right after the class user, and one is inside the user constructor. So user round brackets, there is another username. So the one in the constructor is local to the constructor, and the one outside is the is a instance of the user object. So now avoid any confusion and to refer to the username outside the constructor one, I would have to use this. So instead of let me show you. You don't need to use this. You can avoid it by just changing your variables which you defined inside your constructor to something else. Now there is no confusion in the username inside and the username outside because there is no username inside. Now it's called A. So it should do the same thing without using this. So this is basically referring to this username, this one, and this age. But because there were two different ones, right? Why there were two? Because I wrote username again over here. So the argument which was called was stored in a local variable named username or in this constructor, username and age. Now there is an issue. You can see there is an error. There is no, oh, that is A and B, sorry. There is no A and B anymore. So I can't just say username equal to username and age equal to age because the one which it is referring to is these two. But I want to store it in these two, these variables. So that is why to access the variable outside with the same name, I will use this. This is in Java. This is also this keyword is also in Java and JavaScript. So those who have done that, they know that it is used to refer to a non-local variable with the same name. So hopefully that avoided the confusion.
Yes, yes, yes.
I've shared the code in the chat. You can uh, refer to it later. Let me just shift to share this tab instead. Okay, so now I'm on my slides. So yeah, now there is also
Bhaiya,
something.
Bhaiya,
Uh,
an error is coming. It is saying that compiling with sound null safety.
yeah, null safety. I should explain null safety once again. Um, I'll just show the code and explain it. It would be much simpler to understand what is null safety. So yeah, man, just add this after this. So यहाँ पे look at this, guys. I have initialized this, right? मेरे को ये हटाने दो ये दोनों. When I just leave it as it is, username and age, I get these errors. Non-nullable instance field username must be initialized. And this is the thing about if I view the docs, suppose if you view the docs, it is basically related to something called null safety. And in that, um, what you have to do, the slide which is what I was going to show will explain you null safety, how to avoid it. But to avoid it, you can just give it some random initial value. Any variable which you are defining, you you have to give it some value. If you're it will throw you errors if you just leave it as it is. So तुम एक बार इसको just try like assigning it this empty string and zero, and it should not give you the error again. जो भी any variable you have defined, just assign this any value, and then you can your constructor will update that value when it's called, so that will not give you an issue. So hopefully that solves the problem, and I'll move on to the slide.
Bhaiya, it still gives the error.
Okay, you can. Um, I'll just wait. I'll go over this null safety example right now, and there is also another way to avoid it. Okay, so I'll just tell you about it right now. So suppose you want a variable to be null, you want it to be null, or there is this null safety error which you don't know how to solve. So you can put, suppose you have made a int variable, you put a question mark right after int, and now it won't give you the, it should not give you the null safety issue. Hopefully this works. Can you try this? Please tell me if it works. Okay. So in this example, basically, to avoid for null safety, you either initialize a variable to some value, or like it can be just you can write the number or directly the value or the output of a function, suppose get file name or some kind of function, and you have to have some value assigned to the newly constructed variable, newly declared variable. But if you don't want to give it any value, or if you want to give it null value, you have to use this notation. Uh, you have to put a question mark right after the data type. Similarly, list, if you want list with elements which are null, you can use this, restrict this into in question mark, and now it will accept null object. So hopefully that should solve your issue. Just tell me if it does. If
Yes, Bhaiya. It's all.
okay, so guys, so it does solve it, and in Flutter, like you have to be careful about null safety because anywhere you can't have non-assigned variables. So handling exceptions. So um, maybe you guys have not the first years. Maybe you have not done exception handling in Python yet. I'm not sure, but you will soon do it. So basically, what is exception handling? So suppose there is some code which is which can have any issue. Suppose it is taking input from the user and storing it in a int variable, suppose. But what if the user is entering a string value like ABCD? Then there will be an error. So if you want, what happens in that case? Then the program will stop executing, and that will be an issue because, yeah, I mean, like programs should not have soft. We should ask for another input at least. So the error which arises in that case during the runtime due to something unexpected is an exception. So these exceptions can be handled by using this try catch, and also finally blocks. Finally, I won't go into it's not compulsory. I'll just explain try catch. In Python, it is same as try and except. We call it catch in Java, C++, and Dart. So so here you can see the try block will contain the code which you think can give you an error, like that input one. You're taking input from the user and storing it into a variable of specific data type, suppose integer. So maybe user can input some non-integer value like float or suppose string, and that will definitely give you an error. You put that code block in this try block. Okay. So now when that exception happens, so this try block, what it will do, it will go execute this catch block when it finds an exception which has happened in the code inside it. And now, so IOE exception is some input output exception, is a particular type of exception. So there are different types of exception, like input exemptions are like, or anything related to input IOE exception. So like in this case, uh, this code is basically trying to read some text file. You don't need to know like how it works right now, because this is just an example. I can't show it on the pad also, reading text file. So because I can't store files on the website. So on IOE exception catch E, basically when I encounter this kind of exception, I catch it and store the exception type in this E variable. E is a variable. And now I want to uh, print this statement that now I have encountered this error and I want to print it to the user. So I have given the statement could not describe object, and I have passed the exception which was stored in E, the E variable, and to print out the E variable as well. And then finally, like I won't go over finally because it's little more complex and it is completely optional. You don't need to write finally at all. It is something more complex. So if someone has any doubt, I know कि codes execute किया नहीं, बट हाँ दिखा सकते कोड एग्जीक्यूट करके एक एग्जांपल दिखा.
Bhaiya, flyby object is any list or any or like that.
हाँ हाँ any iterable object like list. I think string should also work. आप you can try string as well. Okay, so इसके I'll just I think I'll just remove all these and I'll make an integer a. So you'll see there is an error, right? Okay, so no, not there is no error right now. Error will come when I'm using it or passing it because it's null type. What if I put this question mark? So you can see when I'm putting this question mark, the error goes away because now it is accepting null values. What if I print it? Will it print null? Let me just see. I'm not sure. Yeah, it does print null. So now you can print null values. That was it for this example. I'll switch tabs. So we looked at how to do the standard programming, how to do calculations and print strings, do operations with strings, with integers, decimal values, right? What we usually were learning in CS 101, all those things. And we looked at functions and stuff. But that is printing words, all those ASCII characters in the console. But we want to build apps. Apps have GUI, right? They have some kind of graphics, some interface. So these UI components are also a part of the Dart language. You can directly, there are things called widgets. So these widgets are really simple UI elements which will which is a basically a code, some code which will generate your UI. It will generate all those display, all those text. It will generate all the app bar and other forms of UI components. In this case, you can see there is an app bar, CD faint and column widget. I took this photo from the Flutter documentation. I will share you the link later. You can see all kinds of widgets they have available. There is a container, icon, an image. Image is much more relatable. There is also text widget. So Flutter uses widgets to build the UI of the application, and your whole application is a tree of widgets. So understanding tree of widgets may be confusing for first years. Just imagine it as being like many widgets linked with each other for now. So widgets are simple UI elements like a text box or an app bar or an image, anything. The widgets have properties which enable us to customize them further. So like each widget will have their own property. Like text widget would have the input, the contents of the text, like the string you want to display. And the image one will have like which image you want to display. And other more properties like designing the text, like the font size, the font type. Like if you want um, Times New Roman font, there must be some. It would be uh, a property. So widgets can also contain another widget inside of them. So as a property, that property is the child property. So as you can see, there is something called column container widgets. These widgets are meant to have more widgets inside them. So they provide structure to the UI. So let's watch a video, a quick video, okay, which will explain it much more better in a much more better and visual way. Okay, so hopefully I have to mute my.
All right then, gang. So if there's one concept I want you to fully understand by the end of this video, it's going to be widgets. Widgets are the bedrock of Flutter applications because without them, we can't create them. Everything inside a Flutter app is essentially a widget. So imagine we create a very, 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 very simple Flutter application and it looks something like this inside the phone. And everything inside here would be a widget. Okay, so we have all these different pieces of content, but surrounding them all, first of all, would be what's known as a root widget. So that surrounds everything in the entire app. Then nested inside that widget, we have this app bar widget at the top, this strip. And inside that, we have nested a text widget, which is the actual title of the app. So we can see this app kind of taking shape in this tree-like structure of widgets, where we have one widget nested inside another, and one widget nested inside this one, etc. Now, also on the page, we have this content down here, and surrounding that could be some kind of container widget. And then inside the container widget would be a text widget. So we can see now this tree is taking shape. And not many applications that you create using Flutter are going to be this simple and just contain a handful of widgets like this. But you can see this general idea of what's known as a widget tree in Flutter. So a widget tree just describes the structure of widgets inside your app. Now, there's loads and loads of different kinds of widgets pre-built into the Flutter framework that we can use out of the box. So things like a text widget or a button widget to create buttons, a row widget, which is to do with the layout of different widgets in a row. Likewise, we have a column widget for laying out different widgets in a column, and also image widgets, plus loads more, which we're going to see as we go through the course. Now, each of these widgets are also fully customizable, and we can pass through different properties to these widgets to alter how they display on the screen. So, for example, our text widget could have a style property, which would then determine how it looks, the font weight, things like that. We also have a text align property, an overflow property, max lines, etc. Now, a button widget could have a color property to define the color of the button, an elevation property to say whether it should be elevated off the screen or not and by how much, a disabled color property, which is going to determine how it looks when the button is disabled, an enabled property to say whether it is enabled or not, etc. So all of these different Flutter widgets, they contain loads of different properties that we can define values for, which is going to determine how they actually look and behave on the screen. Now, at the end of the day, all widgets are in Flutter are classes. Each widget has its own programmatic class, which defines its behavior and also how it looks on the screen. Now, the way we implement this kind of widget tree structure in Flutter is by using a programming language called Dart. Now, Dart is a language developed by Google to build mobile, desktop, and web applications. Really easy to pick up. It's similar to other object-oriented programming languages. It uses classes, functions, types, etc. And I will explain it as we start to write it in our code. But for those of you who want a sneak preview of how Dart looks to create a Flutter app, here we go. This is just from my GitHub repo. I've gone to the last lesson and just chosen a random Dart file to show you. We can see right here, this is a class called HomeState, and this is all a widget is at the end of the day, a class in Dart. And down here, we're using these different widgets to create our widget tree. So everything in blue down here, this is essentially a widget, and you can see that they're nested inside each other. And it's these different widgets with their different properties that are making up our widget tree inside Flutter. So we're going to learn all about this as we go through the rest of the course. But to begin with, what I'd like to do is just bring you up to speed with Dart in itself. I'm going to teach you all of the basics so that for the rest of the video,
So now you have a better understanding of widgets. So this right now you can see what he's showing is how the code of these widgets would look like. So these are like he's showing like there's padding, and inside the padding widget there's some property, like there is also a child property which has another widget column and so on. So this forms a complex tree of widgets, and right now you can see this code, but now I will show you some code examples which you'll run on the Dartpad website to see how exactly the UI is built. It will give you a much better understanding.
all right, then.
Wait, okay. Whew. Okay, so now guys, we would be programming our widgets and making the UI of the app on Dartpad itself. So the first thing you need to do is copy this import command as it is. So right, let me just so I'll just go over this first example. So we're importing a package called material dart inside Flutter folder, and in the main function we are returning this run app function, and inside we're passing material app which we have got from the import, and that material app is a widget. It's a widget. Okay, it is your whole app, a widget of the whole app. Okay, and it has a property called your home. It is your home screen. So this is your the first screen which is displayed, or would be your home screen, and you have just passed in a text widget called hello world inside that property. So, and when you run this, you will, after some time, it will take some time, but you will get something like this hello world kind of thing. But it won't be in your console like the ones we did before. It would be something called UI, because this is what is being displayed on your screen, on the phone screen, or the if you're making a web app, then the tab inside your website, this would what be this is what would be displayed. Let's quickly code this. Hopefully I switched my tab to import the packages would be a string flutter material dot semicolon. um, void main run app material app. Okay, so I material app has a home property which has a widget called text. We have given this widget text, uh, and text contains hello world, hello world, and we have to return. After returning something, we put semicolon. That's why. You can put a comma here, but it won't give you error if you don't write it. So Right now the console switched to something called UI output. This is basically of going to be your phone screen. It will take some time to render, but after some time, I think it should display hello world if there is no issue.
Yes, Bhaiya, it comes.
Okay, in your example, it is displaying hello world. In mine, it is showing a blank screen. So let
Bhaiya, it will come in some time.
हाँ it takes some time guys थोड़ा time रुको देखो आ गया this is what would be displayed on the top left corner a huge hello world red color with this yellow lines but this is not exactly an app that we want right so we'll go in the next example.
Bhaiya, why here the text color is default red and then
So this is basically really basic. We have not like first thing we have not styled the text by default it is like this and this is not the widget we will build our app on build our UI this is basically the app widget means इसके अंदर और structure डालना है and the next widget will put is called scaffold एक scaffold widget अभी देखेंगे so now the next example you the only difference is instead of in the home property, we have added a scaffold widget in this case. So hello world text is switched with the scaffold and as you can see output बहुत different है from before. So and there is this app bar. App bar is this blue bar at the top and inside it you can see there's a title app bar has the property title has is passing the widget we are passing the widget text in the title the text is my first flutter app वही दिख रहा है that is what we can see on the top left and it is much different from the first example right we just changed a couple of lines let's code this let's just code this and see so we just added scaffold widget and remember okay so इसके बाद comma डाल देना after your widget you and the round brackets comma just for safety ऐसा कुछ if it's the it will only return you errors if it's some if there are multiple widgets side by side there's this app bar property which has app bar widget put comma afterwards इसके अंदर inside app bar widget there is title property as a text widget. Now in this we put anything, any text you want. I'll say my first Flutter app. Hopefully you can see this. This is the code and I'll just run this and for a time it will take some time. It will take some time to render. Um, if you use Android Studio, it would be much quicker. So this is exactly what we got as what I showed you. Now you can see it looks much different from the hello world. So the scaffold, what is the scaffold? Scaffold will give your app structure. This is a widget you will use every time. It's a you can assume this is a standard template code. Inside the scaffold, there would be app bar. There would be a body. This blank white space. Assume this is a body. In the next example, we'll update this further. We'll build the UI even further. So now we'll add a couple more widgets like the body. We'll put to the scaffold widget. There is a body property. We'll add the body. We'll add a button as well. So you can press it and it will give some kind of animation. So it would look like this, guys. So there would be hello world. In the body, there will be a click button which you can press, but it won't be doing anything because we are not giving it a function. So let's just code this. Let's just add it to our code. जो पहले था just थोड़ा change करना. Now, okay, so app bar. After app bar we put body property. Center, what will center do? It will center the text. Um, Otherwise it would be printing it in the top left. So center is also a widget. It will center our text hello world. So it has a child property. I will remind you once again that um, we can put we can pass widgets inside widgets using the child property. Hello world. So okay, there is also a button called floating capital A action button. So this particular format of variable naming in which the first word has the first letter is small, but the words after it, like action and button, will have their first word capital. This is called camel case. It is a standard of it is a naming convention. तुम लोग आगे और मतलब एक्सपीरियंस के साथ डिफरेंट केसेस सीख जाओगे लाइक for which type of variable naming convention is used. Um, you will learn it much later. So float an action button widget. You just make the widget. Hopefully there are no errors. Oh, you can see there is one error which says I need to add on pressed property. So this is a compulsory property. You can't not write this because it will throw you an error. And what it tells is, it's okay, when I press this button, what should I do? Usually it should be a function, but now we are just passing in an empty function, which does nothing. It is so you have to mention that it does nothing. Like, oh, child key spelling. Okay. So I'll hide all these issues. So hopefully, this is the code. Just check it. I'll run it right now. Wait for some time to update it. Okay, it has refreshed. Now you can see. Now you can see it's the previous example with hello world at the center and a click button at the bottom right. So when I click this, there is some kind of animation which you can see. If you have coded along with me, you can click it and see the animation. So this is a button. It has this UI component is called floating action button. And all these widgets have a bit complexity to them. They are really fundamental, but they have something in like this animations, which usually is difficult to do from scratch. But the widget system in Flutter has just made it easier by just packaging them into a single statement or keyword. So I switch my tab, go to the next slide. So now you can see this example is a bit different from the previous one. We have changed colors and things. So we do have widgets, but you can customize them as well. You can change the color, change the font type. There is a lot of customization properties for widgets in Flutter. So your apps can look um, much more different than each other. You can make them unique. You can make them You can design them and do what you want. So the changes, I'll go over the changes. So we have centered the title. We have added background color, colors dot red, 600 in square bracket. So basically what this means is Flutter, I have mentioned in a previous slide that it has something called material design library built in by default. What it does is it adds different kinds of colors. It has different shades of colors. You can choose for one type of color, say red, there is 900 shades. So maximum you can go is 900. Currently we have chosen 600 in this example. And look at when we look at the body, we are the child is text, hello world, and along in the text widget, there is another property style. Now style will change the text style. So we have put past a text style widget which has font of 20. Font weight is bold, like bold we do write in. You guys would know bold, italics, and other type. Those are font weights. Letter spacing. Letter spacing will basically tell like between each letters how many pixels space should be there. So we have specified that. Colors. It's like just a we have passed a gray color. So the text looks a bit lighter than black. And in the floating action button, we have just changed the color, background color to the red color in the app bar. So let's code this. Okay, let's just code this quickly. So right after the title, we'll do center title true. This is a property which will center the title background color property background. Sorry, that colors colors dot red square bracket 600. You can pass any number from till 900. I think should be fine. And there is this hello world text widget. Inside the text widget there would be a comma after hello world. Style property, text style. By font size 90.0, and then font weight font weight for bold comma letter spacing to comma color colors dot gray 600. Not a comma here. We just get this bracket back. Okay, so this was a center widget. Center widget also can go there. Okay, so now that's it. Floating action button. We'll come to that. There's only one widget we need to add, and that is background color. Colors dot red 600. Let me just show you guys the code. Okay, look at this. This is the code. if you're coding alongside, एक बार check कर लो. I'll run this. And we'll just look at the output, what we get. Hopefully it is.
Bhaiya, can you show the code once more?
Okay. So output is as expected. This is the code. If you want me, I'll just share this code in the chat, meeting chat, so that you can directly copy. Hopefully there is no a copy pasting issue from one platform to another. So like when you're done, if you're getting the same thing, just tell me. This is the last code example. After this, there is no code example. We'll go over some other things. But like this, you can customize your app. You can change the color, change the font, change the align, like center things, like the places where different words or widgets may be. Lot of customization is there. This is really simple. But now it at least looks more like this. So are you done? Someone had was asking for the code. Okay.
Bhaiya, the code is not complete. Shared.
I have written this only. अच्छा मैं एक और बार शेयर करता हूँ. Hopefully मैंने कोई mistake नहीं की. No, I think you need to scroll from the start because it is oh, it is not complete. After gray, what happened after gray? Okay, so there's some copy paste issue. You know what? I'll just give you the thing after the missing thing. There was this copy paste issue. So you can see colors dot gray. That line was like clipped. So you can continue the code from there. There is no indentation issue though. Just copy paste directly. It should work. And I'll just go to the next slide because share this tab. Okay. So setting up Flutter on Android Studio. Okay. So we did all of our programming on a website called Dartpad. That is just to test our Dart code or UI. You can do a lot, but it is slow. Like you saw, it takes a couple of minutes to just build the app and show us. Plus, it's not exactly showing us in the mobile, right? It is just a UI box. But when you use Android Studio, you can actually have an emulator or through USB cable connect your mobile phone so that you can display the app directly on the screen of those mobile phones, either virtual or your mobile phone. And plus, it is much more faster than a website. Your app will your display will be there is something called hot reload. Any change you make within seconds, it will update the app. So there's many more benefits, but suppose you don't have a laptop. Android Studio is a desktop application, of course. You don't have a laptop, you can continue with Dartpad. It should work, I hope. But I would be continuing with Android Studio, and I will share you these slides. This is basically the end of the session. I will go over all the links to show how to install. When I share this video, you can watch this video. The person will tell you like how to install, where to install from, and you like the video. If you there's also this the official documentation has the a well documented guide. It the person in the video would use this link only to go to all the links for Android Studio. The SDK for Flutter has to be downloaded separately. Git will also have to be downloaded separately. So no, I don't
Hey,
want
gang, and welcome
to.
to.
Yeah, so I'll share this and you can watch the video later because the installation you have to do it yourself. I'll go over the links and everything just to give an overview what is to be done. So there is this first link which is Flutter error solve. So if you have any error after you do the installations and setup, if you get errors, there is some errors which were solved in this doc, in this uh, in this file, doc file. There's there are examples of some errors which were solved, and hopefully, you if you get similar errors, you can just refer to this, and it would solve your issue because there is a lot of things to be installed. First thing you'll install is Android Studio, the SDK. It is the standard IDE for Android app development. If you have attended the Android study jams with Kotlin, you must have installed Android Studio. So let it be. If you have it, you don't need to change anything. You just have to install two other things. One is Flutter SDK. So when you go to the Flutter website, I've clicked the third link. Suppose I have a Windows device. I click Windows. So now you can see there is a Get Flutter SDK. You just click on this, download the file SDK, and store it in a place. It is like instructed a user slash your username document, something like this, and it has told you do not install Flutter in directly like program files. You store this. You can store it in this folder, and remember where you store it because the location would be uh, used in a different place while setting it up in Android Studio. And oh, I just realized that I'm not sharing tabs. I'm so sorry. So I meant this website, guys. Sorry if you couldn't view it. But here, this blue button, download the file, zip file for Flutter. This is the Android Studio website. This was the second link in the slide. And uh, there's also Git. You have to install Git. It is a version control system. Like OPOC had a workshop on GitHub, and we use the Git command line to push and to make changes to a GitHub repo from the desktop. So that would also be used. And you can set up your virtual device by referring to this video inside of Android Studio. So that was it. I guess what I'm doing is after this session, you guys do the installation. And if you have any issues, you can post it on the WhatsApp group. I would be helping you along with some other people. Um, so thank you everyone. You may ask doubts if any by just unmuting your microphone. That was it for this session.